The Iran war thing, we haven't talked about it much lately because it's hard to trust anything that you hear, especially from our own government. I mean, we know how they handle like mostly everything. And of course, if there's things going poorly for the war, it's like, do you think that's the thing that they're going to come out and just tell you all the truth about? You know, they're just going to be super truthful about that. They'll lie about everything else, but like when the war isn't going
Trump
well.
is putting on Truth Social.
Yeah, it is called a truth when he posts it. So you do have to take that under consideration. So before we even had time to talk about it, there was this new initiative called Project Freedom that was announced on Sunday and was already ended last night. And so just to catch up a little, even though a lot of you guys, I'm sure, have already heard some of this stuff, he posted that on Sunday. Countries from all over the world, almost all of which are not involved in the Middle Eastern dispute going on so visibly and violently for all to see, have asked the United States if we could help free up their ships, which are locked up in the Strait of Hormuz on something which they have absolutely nothing to do with. They are merely neutral and innocent bystanders. For the good of Iran, the Middle East, and the United States, we have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways so that they can freely and ably get on with their business. Again, these are ships from areas of the world that are not in any way involved with that which is currently taking place in the Middle East. I have told my representatives to inform them that we will use best efforts to get their ships and crews safely out of the strait. In all cases, they said they will not be returning until the area becomes safe for navigation and everything else. This process, Project Freedom, will begin Monday morning, Middle East time. I'm fully aware that my representatives are having very positive discussions with the country of Iran and that these discussions could lead to something very positive for all. The ship movement is merely meant to free up people, companies, and countries that have done absolutely nothing wrong. They are victims of circumstance. This is a humanitarian gesture on behalf of the United States. All right, so we get that. I don't have to read the rest of it. We get Project Freedom. They're going to guide ships. What we found out later on, which they did actually, there was like a little uptick. I believe they got like 11 ships out of the strait during this process of like the 1,000 or so that are like trapped back there. But they got like 11.
That's more than the 10 gifts though that we had.
It is
10 presents.
And we'd already got those 10, the 8+2 boats. Or is that what you're referring?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, to what you were referring? Yeah. So that is more. So this happens, Project Freedom, we're going to help. And then Iran launches this big strike against UAE, sort of in what is seen to be a response to this, because we've already got our blockade going. Iran's not happy about that. They fired at some of our ships or whatever. They haven't hit any ships or anything. So we haven't ended the ceasefire. We got that 60-day clock that expired on the war powers. And so now we're waiting. I think we're waiting for them to hit us so we can go back in a defensive capacity, even though we're currently doing a blockade, which itself is an act of war. But I think we're waiting for an excuse to go back in. That's not like
to reset the 60-day clock.
Yeah, to do another 60-day clock, I think is what's happening. But there were big strikes in the UAE hitting oil facilities in response to this. And they did a press conference yesterday, said this wasn't enough to constitute breaking the ceasefire. They didn't hit us. They hit UAE. UAE is an odd situation because they've actually got Israeli troops stationed in UAE. They're using the Iron Dome to defend themselves. They're basically seen by Iran as like a proxy state for Israel, essentially. They sort of play ball more with whatever we want to do than even the other countries in the area that still play ball with whatever we want to do. And so UAE got hit. All right, so we know that. Now we're getting caught up. Trump then posts out on, May 5th, 5:52 p.m. This is last night. He says, based on the request of Pakistan and other countries, it's always Pakistan. They're always asking us, and we're always, like, yeah, okay, fine, Pakistan. We were going to completely win this thing. We're going to...
Well, they keep threatening India with a nuke.
That's the problem.
If we don't capitulate.
He says, based on the request of Pakistan and other countries, the tremendous military success that we have had during the campaign against the country of Iran, and additionally, the fact that great progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran, We have mutually agreed that while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, Project Freedom, the movement of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed. President Donald J. Trump. So now we're getting
2.5 days of Project Freedom.
We're getting, well, they didn't start till Monday morning, and it was Tuesday after. It was about a day and a half of freedom, or at least the project of freedom in the area. And so we didn't get that for very long at all. And now you have to decide whether or not you believe that we're actually making a lot of progress on
this is what's so strange about this war is that the statements that Trump's puts out, he's going to end a civilization.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, wait, we're going to give him more time. And then we're going to have a ceasefire, but people are still launching missiles and drones and stuff, but they haven't technically violated it. We're still bombing Lebanon via Israel, even though our largest American embassy is in Beirut, which is strange. And then he does little things like this. We're going to rescue a few boats.
I think 11, something like that.
9 plus 2.
Yeah. 9 plus
Makes
2 boats.
9,
That's better. Yeah. There you go. Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Everything.
I see what you're talking about. And that was Iran probably. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And then we're going to pause it. And we have an agreement. We don't have an agreement. They don't know what they're doing.
This whole time, by the way, Iran has been like, yeah, there's not an agreement. We're not talking. They're like, we are having talks in Pakistan in 2 days. And the whole time, Iran's like, we're not having talks in Pakistan. They've said numerous times, we're not going to do any talks while the blockade is going on. And that, like, over and over again, we're not having talks. We're not doing it. They send over some stuff. The stuff is like, here's everything that we've ever wanted ever in history. And Trump's like, we have received a proposal from Iran and we're going over it. I'm like, you're never going to agree that what they just propose that you kill yourself. Oh, we have received a proposal. How about this? The talks are going so great right now. And
it's like talking to a friend who's really into a girl, but she's not into him at all.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow. Yeah. We're going to hang out with a group of friends on Friday. So she's in love with me. And she's like, I can't stand that guy.
He's really doing a business. He was like, well, I don't know. He told me to call his secretary. So, I mean, it does seem like things are pretty good right now. I don't know. And then we get this report yesterday also that Israel and the U.S. are preparing renewed airstrikes on Iran's infrastructure. Okay, so maybe we're going to get the war going again. I don't know. We'll see if that's Israel's coordinating with the U.S. to carry out a short campaign against Iran if the ceasefire falls apart over escalations in the Strait of Hormuz, officials said. You might wonder, like we did, what was it, like a solid month, solid 5 weeks of war before this ceasefire took effect, however long that went. We hit a lot of targets, completely decimated their military.
The nuclear program.
Yeah, the nuclear program. We know that. It's gone. And so you're like, what is this short campaign that they're preparing that's going to change the situation from what it is right now? We did 5 weeks of just hitting every single target that we possibly could hit during that time. And a lot of the reports I've seen said they've still got up to 70% of their missile capacity still there. And so we're going to do a short campaign that's going to be like drastically different. That's decimated. Drop 30%. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's bad. And so I don't know what they're planning on doing here, but we did get this morning. I always hate these Truth Social posts. They're always so far zoomed out. Trump says, assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to, which is perhaps a big assumption.
That's what it is. It's a big assumption.
It is.
Because they said they haven't agreed to anything.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a couple times now, but he does this all that. He'll just go ahead and say that they've agreed to something. And then if they don't do it, then it's them who like went back on a thing that they agreed to, even though the whole time they're like, we didn't agree to that tweet. It's just not happening. Anyhow,
I did not do that.
assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to.
This reminds me, this whole thing reminds me, I don't know why, of the scene in Talladega Nights when he comes home, and to his wife marrying his best friend.
I seriously did not know that.
Ricky, your marriage was a hollow shell. You knew that. I did not know that. And Trump just crudely pastes his face over
the Ayatollah
over Khamenei. That's hanging up in the mosque in Tehran.
So he says that's a big assumption. The already legendary Epic Fury will be at an end, and the highly effective blockade will allow the Hormuz Strait to be open to all, including Iran. That's if they agree to give what they have agreed to give, but they already agreed to give it. Okay. If they
agree to give what has been agreed to.
If they don't agree to the thing that they've already agreed to,
assumptively,
the bombing starts, and it will be, sadly, at a much higher level and intensity than it was before. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Solemnly. Are we coming up on Bridge and Power Plant Day again? I don't know. I'm ready for a Bridge and Power Plant post. Although I think this time, if they're actually going to do it, which no indication they were ever actually going to do that, you wouldn't tell them beforehand that you're going to do it, because a bunch of people lined up around the power plants and on the bridges, and that would have been really bad if they would have hit. I mean, that was like a baller move by the people in Iran to go stand on the bridges and surround the power plants.
Yeah.
And so in this case, you wouldn't want to tell them before you started your strikes again, because you don't want them to have time to do that. When it comes to this war and where we are right now in this process, anyone who tells you that they know what's going to happen, I think that they're just lying. They're doing something that we've never been able to do, which is just pick a thing and just go with it and make that prediction and then act like we never said it next week after everything changes.
The only prediction we're good at is when the government tells you this is going to be short and not take very long. We know that that's not true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We know for sure that this is going to go on longer and cost more money than any prediction the government can make.
Typically, you're just good assuming that the government will fail at the things it says it's going to do. So if they say it's going to be short, it's going to be long. If they say it's going to last a long time, it'll be short. If they say it's going to cost this much, it'll cost double that.
At least.
If they say they're going to take in this much, they're going to take in half that much. Just always assume that the government's going to fail at the things that they tell you that they're going to do, and you'll be right, almost all of the time. That's it. It works. It works pretty well. Right now, I can't tell if there's any talks going on. I don't see any reason. I think Trump right now is hoping that Iran's economy is going to fail or something like that, that their economy is going to collapse because of the blockade. No big signs of that happening right now, but it could happen quickly. Trump could decide to just leave. He could decide to do that because gas price, this is a midterm year. And he probably doesn't want to lose both the House and the Senate. And people are pretty unhappy right now. Again. Yeah. I mean, that's going to happen. Whatever. Yeah. No one cares. At this point, I think he should just extend his record. That way no one ever breaks it.
The problem is if he loses the Senate, then...
Well, you still got to have 60 or 66 in the Senate. So they're nowhere close to that.
Well, they can suspend the rules.
Well, that's not a rule. That's I'm pretty sure that one is in
They'll create a new rule.
They could. Yeah. Hey, I wouldn't put it past them. Okay. There's this story just to wanted to tell everyone that Iran has hit far more U.S. military assets than previously reported, says imagery published by Iranian state-affiliated media. Now, remember, we haven't had as much access to all of the satellite surveillance because the government decided to tell the satellite surveillance companies that they couldn't release stuff. And so we haven't seen quite as much of the damage, but Iran posted out some photos of the damage, and it shows damage to at least 228 structures or pieces of equipment at U.S. military sites in the Middle East, which is just wild. Like, I don't think this is something they planned on happening, and it might be a reason that they don't want to restart the whole thing over again. Like, we've taken a lot of damage, and I don't know what the future is going to look like for our bases in the Middle East. Maybe we're not even going to have some of them. And hey, that could be, there's your 4D chess move right there. This was actually Trump just getting us out of the Middle East. You just create a failure so bad that you actually have to leave.
It's just Trump, so he wants to go out with a bang.
Yeah, got to.
Yeah.
Got to put it in the history book somehow, you know.
Put a little money in all of his buddies' pockets.
That kind of thing. I mean, they go through all the different photos, all the places been hit in Kuwait, Bahrain,
you've been.
UAE. Oh yeah, like I was going through and I saw like a bunch of the names of the bases that I've been to before, like Al Dhafra, which is in UAE, and Arif John, which is in Kuwait, and Camp Buring, which is also in Kuwait, I believe, and the Fifth Fleet was stationed in Bahrain, been there to that one. And so a lot of these photos, like, I've been to many of these places, been down this road, and probably been in some of those buildings because they take you on tours. I've been there, so it means I went on the military tour.
Okay, so you can talk about this.
I can talk about, I can talk about the damage to our bases and anything that those bases, the operations that they have had in the area, because I have been to those bases and many people haven't. And so if you want to talk to an expert, you can ask me about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
It's good to get an expert opinion.
I mean, what else? Were you going to sit here and talk about it as a guy who hasn't been there?
Yeah.
That'd be ridiculous.
I would never do such a thing.
No, you wouldn't. You want to have a guy on that's been there before. So,
yeah.
You know,
that doesn't fit my journalistic ethics.
The gas price thing is a problem, and it might be the reason that Trump has to find some kind of solution. Like, listen, he could pull something out of a hat pretty soon. I'm not saying that there is no deal or there's nothing that we're waiting on them to agree on that they agreed on, or assumingly. And so there's sure, they could announce that today and the whole thing could be over. It's kind of the way that Trump works. It's kind of tough to predict anything that Trump's going to do. We've seen no indications that that's the case. But there's a lot of indications that Trump's going to want to get out of this thing pretty quick because, holy crap, gas is crazy. NBC has this thing out where you can put in your county and see how much gas has gone up. And as I said, it's now up, what would that be at my gas station? It's up $1.80 a gallon from about a week before the war. And I'm sure most of you guys have seen the same thing. And it's kind of wild to think about because, like, if you fill up your car just once a week, if you have a 10-gallon tank, that's $18 right there. And so if you have that, I don't know, every single week, every single month, just say you're talking $70 a month, this thing's costing you. So imagine, like, this is the position that you're in. You go to your wife and you're like, hey, can we get this subscription that's $70 a month? And your wife's like, what is it? And you're like, I don't know for sure what it is. And she's like, what are we going to get? I'm like, technically, nothing. It could potentially help our closest ally, but there's actually a lot of indications it could make things worse. She's like, well, I don't know. That sounds too good to be true. Why is it only $70 a month for us right now? That's crazy. And that's basically the subscription that a lot of us have signed up for. Not voluntarily. We've been forced into the subscription that we're paying right now. And obviously a lot of people are very unhappy about this. We're having what is technically still short-term pain, yes, like from the group there, until it turns into long-term, and no one can tell me for sure what the gain is. And when they tell me what the gain is, they're telling me that they trust that the government's going to be real successful at like one of the more complicated tasks it's taken on in decades and decades. They're like, yeah, I really think that the government's going to be very successful. Oh, also, and the next government that comes in after them, and the next government that comes in after them. I just really trust that these people
they also
are going to do a great job.
What the threat was to begin with.
No, because they can't.
For starting this entire thing.
That's why they haven't done it.
There was no proof whatsoever that Iran was close to a nuke. So to me, that's the most damning piece of evidence.
Well, they were close to enrichment, though, Charlie. They had 60% enriched uranium. That's what people say. They did. And they could, like, once you get to that, you can go to 90% pretty quickly. And they'll be like, see, they could have gone to 90% in a couple of weeks if they decided to do so. But then you ask the next question. That's when someone leaves you on red, as the kids might say 10 years ago. The next question is, well, were they any indication they were really building a bomb? Were they working on that?
And then here's the next question. Any indication that they have the technology to reach the United States with said bomb?
Well, they fired 2 missiles at a place that's a 29-hour flight away from here, Charlie. So what do you think?
I mean, I guess they could have reached the outskirts of London.
Yeah, potentially.
Which is still not the United States, by the way.
That is also still not the United States, but there are a lot of Americans in London right now. So technically,
why didn't London stop them from this?
The king was just here and he took home some souvenirs, and like those are like part of America, and they're in London now. And so if they up that capacity and they can get into the heart of London, then that's kind of the same thing as being able to hit America. So it's our job to do this, not the countries who are in immediate firing range of these alleged missiles, who they just seem to not care at all. It's us. That is what you signed up for, Charlie.
This is what's so wild to me.
Speaking of not having proof, this is a case of having proof, and an awful case. My God, just terrible. Terrible.
The problem
thing.
is that the downside effects of this can be much worse. Like, we've talked for a while. One of the reasons that America is so powerful is because we've forced the world to trade on our currency. The dollar is the world's reserve currency. That makes us economically strong and powerful. It allows us to issue sanctions and blockades. What happens?
We sort of traded doing that, like being the world's police. Like that's a lot of people have agreed that it is us.
Yeah,
that we do it.
The problem, though, that happens is that if this continues in a way in which it starts to bring down world economies, and people decide like, oh, we're going to go with, something that seems a bit more stable or somebody who has a better future, America just is obviously not going to back to a third world country, but America is going to lose its place in the world. And that's the dangers.
We're going to lose our ability to do stuff like this. Like that, this is insanely expensive and very risky. And we come in, we do the tariff stuff, we do this war thing. We're talking about, he wants a $1.5 trillion military budget. We're going to go off and do this crazy war with someone who can actually shoot back and actually hit other countries around them. And it's one thing to do that, 70 years ago. But to do it right now when you got a $40 trillion debt and you're having a tough time finding people to come in and buy your bonds, so much so that the rates have to stay up pretty high so you can promise them a good return on their money, and you're still dealing with inflation, like you're doing this already on a very shaky foundation. And so even that changes the whole dynamic of whether or not it's like a good idea. And then even if you agree with what people want as the outcome of this war, which some of the stuff I hear, I'm like, okay, well, that all sounds great. Sure, that sounds wonderful. Are we going to get it done while Trump's in office? Who's the next guy that comes in that's going to do this? Are they actually going to be able to succeed at doing that? Because this is the U.S. government, and you're talking about a massive expenditure, very, very big project. They could only do Project Freedom for a day and a half. I mean, so what are we going to do here? You got to really put a lot of trust in the government to hear what all their goals are and be like, okay, yeah, we should definitely do that. It's worth the risk. That has to be in your risk calculation when you think about this. Is the government failing like it does a lot, like especially when it comes to what they're doing right now, which they have failed at a lot in our lifetimes. And so a lot of people didn't take that into account. We'll see if Trump can pull it off.
Yeah, and imagine, I know people might not think this is possible, but like empires have fallen before. So, and I'm not trying to fearmonger anyone, but like, look, what if half, not even half, 25% of the world decides to start trading everything in the Chinese yuan, or you get to 30% or 40%. That then is real decimating to America and our livelihoods. Like, we still live in the greatest country in the world right now for a reason. That reason is we dominate financially and economically. Life would look a lot different if we were not the number one country and someone like China was.
Well, because
which is a possibility, by the way.
Because we live so far beyond our means, and it would help. It would destroy our ability to do that. Now, would they pick the yuan? Fortunately for us, I guess we are still the best house in a shitty neighborhood currently, and so trust me, I know a lot about that. It's my life. But right now we're still the best house in a shitty neighborhood.
We have a double wide and full of single wide.
The thing that has even in the trailer park growing up, like we had the nicest trailer in the trailer park.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been my whole life of doing this, and now like sure, I live next to a fentanyl dealer. I used to, but I got a pretty good house. It's updated, remodeled. Got a nice patio out back. It's at the end of the cul-de-sac. I got no neighbor to my left or anything, so it's in a good spot. It's a good house. I got the woods behind me. There's some termites, but it's fine. Snakes come in every now and then. It's still the best house in the neighborhood, okay? So I know about that. That's what's kept us afloat is all the other countries suck worse. And so what I'm saying is for that to happen, another thing also has to happen, which is another country would have to have an even more stable currency that people wanted to trade in, and they'd also have to have a military big enough to protect the world, which is another like kind of trade-off that everyone has agreed to. What time did you have to duck? What's your time like? Is it like now or is it?
No, I have about a half hour.
You still have half hour?
I have a half hour.
I'll have to pee before then. Well, let's move on to the next thing while we're talking about trusting the government.
There's your war update.
Yeah, that's the war. That's what we got right now. Wait and see. Awful story, terrible story. But, a fitting ending, but I wanted to talk about it for a minute. So, former FedEx driver sentenced to death for killing 7-year-old girl after delivery at her Texas home. A former FedEx driver was sentenced to death on Tuesday after he pled guilty to killing a 7-year-old girl he took from her Texas home while delivering a Christmas gift. Jurors in a Fort Worth courtroom decided on Tanner Horner's punishment after hearing about a month of testimony and evidence that included audio of the girl's last moment from inside the delivery van. Horner, 34, pled guilty to capital murder last month in the 2022 killing, just as his trial began. Terrible, awful, disgusting story that took place here. So the guy was sentenced to death. And listen, this is not the kind of thing that I want to use to have an anti-death penalty conversation at all, because I think that we should live stream this guy dying and pay to watch it, and it should raise millions upon millions of dollars, and we should all take joy in watching it happen. But I still, the reason this conversation happened is because in response to this story, Matt Walsh said, "I'm challenging any death penalty opponent, there are millions of them, allegedly, to step up to the plate right now and explain why this guy should not be executed. His guilt is established beyond any doubt whatsoever. His crime is utterly savage and heinous. Tell us why he doesn't deserve to die. Go ahead." And so that's a tough one because you're picking this case and there's video and there's audio, and he admitted to it, and pretty open and shut kind of case there. And so that's a tough one. I did have a response though, because I am very much against the death penalty. Honestly, not for any moral reasons. I'm sorry. Some people are like, well, that's God's job to kill. It's not our job. We shouldn't kill other people regardless. It's not on us to do that kind of thing. I don't know. That might be the case, but this guy deserves to die, and I honestly think the girl's family should be allowed to do it.
Should be a firing squad.
Yeah, or they should put him they should break his leg and put him on an island and let the family hunt him or something like that. Make it into a TV show or whatever, where they get to throw him in like a wood chipper at the end or something like that. I don't know. I'm fine with all that. I have no moral problem with any of that stuff, at all. I don't.
Or if like this was my kid, I'd want to kill him myself.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. And yeah, same if someone did that to one of my nieces or nephews or anyone in my family, really. So once again, the reason we're saying this part is the guy does deserve to die. This guy specifically does deserve to die. It seems to be beyond any doubt, any reasonable doubt or doubt whatsoever. He deserves to die, and I hope he burns in hell. There's a lot of other people where there's not video and audio of the thing happening. In fact, most of the time, there's not video and audio and an admission of guilt.
You don't even have to go
happens.
there. It's we know for a fact of now with evidence, by the way, that the government has gotten it wrong about 30% of the time throughout history.
The number, so it depends on how far in history. I did pull some numbers because what I get is 1 in 8 is the number of exonerated versus executions that happen. But regardless, anywhere in there, if it's 12, if it's 20, if it's 30, they get it wrong. They do get it wrong. And so, like, what about the people who get put to death or spend 20, 30 years in prison, even if they never actually get to the death penalty?
Yeah.
Like any of these people, like, what do you do in that case?
I could definitely entertain a conversation that would move the bar, beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for death penalty specifically, it has to meet certain criteria for the jury to be allowed to decide that. Mm-hmm. Something in this case where the guy admitted to it, there's audio, video, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Because I think what's happened is the beyond a reasonable doubt has been muddled. And it's been muddled by the leniency in which we give judges the ability to exclude evidence, including exculpatory evidence, from trial. And that's a huge problem, by the way, or the fact that they can limit, certain things you're allowed to say or produce as defense. For instance, like bringing up the Constitution, bringing up jury nullification, like to me in a defense, you should be able to say whatever the hell you want. You're defending yourself. Yeah. Jesus Christ. And the problem is that we've given broad authority to judges to exclude or strike things, from the jury hearing them, which gives them a skewed way of deciding beyond a reasonable doubt. And so I think I would entertain, I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm saying I would entertain a conversation if we could set the standard, because like you're killing someone. That's the thing. Like I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. I think in certain circumstances, like this case is definitely one. Like I probably would have killed this guy myself if it were my child. Or I would find any ways necessary potentially. I mean, I like that's the rage I feel inside me. But at the same time, it's like government gets it wrong way too often. And the threshold of beyond a reasonable doubt, I think, has been skewed to where, people have been sentenced to death that absolutely are innocent. And that's a problem.
So I was pulling up some numbers, and this is from the Innocence Project. And so some of the fast facts, they say 1989, the first DNA exoneration took place. 375 DNA exonerees to date. 37 states where exonerations have been won, 14 average number of years served for the people exonerated. Let's see, average age 26, all that.
Can you scoot over a little bit on the string?
It's all the way over to the left on the here. Let me just bring the whole window over here. There we go. 69% of those involved eyewitness misidentification. Never do a case based on just eyewitness testimony. I guess, if it's the victim and like they know the person or something like that, I don't know, but my God, judging based on how I would be able to identify people, I'm going to say it right now, just in case I ever get pulled into jury duty again. Never, ever allow me to convict anyone based on eyewitness testimony, because I'm not paying attention at all. Just never. Never take any case where I am the eyewitness. Just don't. Sorry. Just don't do it. A lot of eyewitness misidentifications. 43% of those were misapplication of forensic science. 30% false confessions. So many people are like, why would someone ever confess to something they didn't do? Well, sometimes they'll get people that are super low IQ and they can get them to confess to things. They can lead you along. I mean, I don't think any of us, maybe you do if you're listening right now, I don't think any of us know how we would react after sitting in a room, sleep deprived for 16 hours, answering the same questions over and over again, or however long, days of this happening. Sleep deprivation will do a lot to you. I mean, you'll do anything to go to sleep. So I did a sleep study one time, man. I did, and the study the next day, the nap thing, where they let you sleep for 15 minutes and then wake you up for an hour and a half afterwards, and then do that like 4 times. I would have confessed to murder.
Well, you almost killed the doctor
just to go to sleep. It was so bad.
You had feelings of murdering the whole office.
It's terrible.
You were there.
So even without that,
wake me up one more time.
Without that, though, because these are DNA exonerees, like people were convicted and then later DNA evidence overturned their case. So what I got as a response to what I said on Matt Walsh's post was, but yeah, today with DNA evidence, like when you have DNA evidence on someone, like that's pretty ironclad. And I'm a prosecutor's worst nightmare here. I'm like, who collected that? Do they work for the government? Oh, okay. Well, so it's not ironclad then, is it? What we have to realize is, see, I when I say I don't trust the government, like I mean it. I don't trust the people who are in these positions where their job is to close a case and then to prosecute a case and to win a case, and that's how they're judged, is whether or not they did a good job closing cases, and then the next person prosecuted them and then won them and got a conviction, and that's what the judgment is on how they've done at their job, not whether or not it was the right person that actually went. Like, no, it's like, is that a win? Okay, cool, we won that case. Let's move on to the next one.
The thing to think about is, like, imagine if this happened to you. Like, what if you were wrongfully accused of something, wrongfully convicted of something? Should you lose your life Should you lose your property? Should you lose your freedom? You've done nothing.
In that instance, most people probably say no.
Right.
They should not.
And then that's the thing that's hard because it's not happening to you. But if it were to happen to you, then I think you might have a different perspective on it. You have to put yourself in that person's shoes, in the truly innocent person's shoes that has been wrongfully accused and wrongfully convicted. And I think that we should be very cautious in deciding someone's fate without knowing for 100% certain. And that's why I say I would entertain a conversation if we could raise the standards. If we could put some type of litany test on it, I would entertain that conversation.
There's other arguments people make, which this should be fixed, but they'll say like they shouldn't get to sit there and live off the taxpayers for the rest of their lives. You know, we shouldn't be paying to food to feed and house them. And actually, it's more expensive to kill someone because of what they charge for, like, say, the lethal injection medications and stuff like that. There's actually been like shortages of those and all that. So like people don't really want to provide them. And so you look at the numbers and it'd actually be more expensive to put someone to death than to actually keep them alive for many years. And that could be fixed by allowing, you know, if you're going to do it, sure.
Yeah.
Should just have a firing squad. That's way better.
Well, I mean,
in my opinion,
it's more expensive because of the hunting project, you know?
Yes.
And none of these guys actually die. We just send them to an underground prison.
Yes.
It's fake lethal injection, man.
That's what it is. Are they being studied on, or what are they,
I can't remember.
Is that a TV show?
It's a show that Brittany got into.
Is that the hunting
project?
No, it's not the name of the show, though.
Yeah, I think it's called The Hunting Party.
Yeah,
Sorry, The Hunting
yeah.
Party. So
yeah, that's probably what's added all the costs. I bet.
That's
and then there's others. So my response
you
to
gotta have
this,
secret agencies, you know, monitor
whole
this
teams
kind
of people
thing.
dealing with this stuff that we just never heard of. The whole thing's a black box. You just don't even know what's going on. My response was, he deserves to die. I'm fine with him dying, but I'm not fine with the government killing people based on evidence they gathered and presented. I don't trust them to tell me what companies should merge. Don't trust them with my health care. Sure as hell don't trust them with that. And I think that that's a pretty fair opinion. Like, it's a pretty big thing to trust them with. And governments lie. And it reminded me of this case I actually saw with the Innocence Project, because one of the responses I got was, well, DNA evidence. I'm like, okay, well, here's a case of a guy who worked for the government literally planting DNA evidence in someone's car. And it came out that he did that, and he went to prison for like 4 years or so.
And he was really sorry.
He was very sorry about it, and he got a leather in his file for sure. They probably docked his pay while he was in prison or something like that. The former chief,
20 months to 4 years. That's it.
The former chief crime scene investigator of Nebraska's most populous county was sentenced to up to 4 years in prison for planting blood evidence in a 2006 murder investigation.
By the way, that's what they caught him doing that.
Yeah.
What else has happened?
So that's the thing. Like, this is a story that we have, but how often does this actually happen? We don't know is the actual answer. Is it likely that this happens today and has happened many times in the past? Yeah.
We know police officers plant drugs and all sorts of things.
We'll see this thing where it says, well, his DNA was found there at the crime scene. I'm like, was it? You don't really know, do you? And you might say, well, but then based on the other circumstances, I think it's good enough that this guy should get life in prison. But like, if you're really making the conviction because of the DNA, I think you ought to not kill the person because it was found and prosecuted by the government. And there is a chance that they could be lying just to get a case off their books so they can win re-election or something like that. You know, I'm just saying their incentives are not good.
Yeah.
They're not good on this.
And
then what, if they did do it, who's going to investigate them and prosecute them? Their friends? Like, no, that's why you hardly see cases like this. But all of us listening are like, yeah, this probably happens a lot, actually. Probably does. Mm-hmm. Could be happening right now as we speak. So it's not about whether or not this guy who killed the 7-year-old girl deserves to die. Of course he deserves to die. Of course. Some people might disagree with that or whatever. You know, I don't know what the morality is on that kind of thing. It's probably bad that I want all the things that happen to him that I truly hope happen to him. That I'll say, of course he deserves to die. But there's a lot of other people. There's a lot of murders every year. There's a lot of other people every single year that get tried and convicted for these things. And even some of the rates that are like predicted, we know that it's at least something like 12% exonerees, not for that have been executed afterwards, but it's like people on death row that are exonerated. And then like the projected error rate based on known mistakes is something like 4% of like all of them, including people that are executed, like we're actually innocent. I mean, is that really worth it to you to pull a random person off the street because maybe they lived in the area or something like that and kill them because you want the appearance of justice for this person? That's not even justice. Clearly, it's not justice.
It's gross.
Yeah.
It's sickening.
Just to make you feel better because you got some revenge for someone else's kid that died, but you didn't. What if you really didn't get it? What if it was the wrong person and the real person's still out there doing it again? Like that, people care too much about like how it makes them feel to see that happen. We got the case closed, we got the conviction, and we killed the person. But like, what if the real person's still out there? You know, you didn't actually win anything.
He might be doing the same thing.
Could be doing it to another person right now. Do you really care, or do you want it to look like you care? You know? So, no, I don't trust the government to do this. I get it. I hope, honestly, you send this guy to prison, throw him in gym pop, probably not going to last a super long time. Honestly, it might be that's one of the like cooler parts of the prison population is that there are lines that they don't like it when people cross. And a guy going in there that did this to a 7-year-old girl, for sure, you know, I'm just saying that might be the best outcome overall. So that's what I have. That's what I got. That's what I got for you right now.
Well,
because we don't have time to get into the Ohio waste project.
From talking about death in war to death penalty.
Death penalty. Well, it's all about, do you trust your government? That's it. How much do you trust your government? Why do you trust them sometimes and not others? One of the responses was, well, wasn't it the jury who decided this? Like, well, based on what did the jury decide this?
By the way, they tried to get Karen Reed twice.
I still never looked into that case.
It's a crazy case.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, the government, after, having a hung jury the first time, and then, the second time she ended up actually getting exonerated. But, it's like, if they're willing to do that, like spend that much money and go after somebody so incredibly hard and withhold evidence and make up evidence and all this stuff, it's like, you have to weigh that, because you have to think that this could happen to you. And that's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if this happened to you? And that, like, that you're not living in a free country at that point. And the reason the founders made it incredibly difficult on government for a reason, and that was because it was way too easy for a king or a government of the past who had too much power to actually get rid of people, kill people, put them in prison forever, because they wanted to, not because something had actually happened. And so I always err on the side of innocence, because I imagine myself in that position. And I know people who are deeply connected to governments, whether it's locally or nationally, that that end up having access to wielding power that shouldn't exist for regular people.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're not regular people. They're working the government.
Yeah, but like if I wanted to, I could make a phone call right now and help out something that I'm doing. And I just don't think that that's right. So I'm not doing it. But it would be fun.
You could do it live.
It would be fun to do. So
another story we have to talk about is the Luke Rosiak investigation into Medicaid fraud in Ohio. And it was another good instance of, do you trust your government? How much can you trust them? How efficient are they? I don't trust them with war in the Middle East. I don't trust them to give me evidence on a death penalty case. And I also don't trust them to distribute funds to people who need it. They found at least hundreds of millions of dollars of what looks like fraud in Ohio for home health schemes, what look like schemes through Medicaid. And it's the kind of thing where you can just sign up and say that you're helping out your mom. And, your mom's old and you're signing up, and then they'll just give you money. And they found a building that's got tons of companies in it. Of course, the building is completely empty, and is taking in millions upon millions of dollars every single year through Medicaid. And just another instance of, we should not be distributing these funds at all. Especially, these things should not be distributed at a federal level, because they can never keep track of all of these things. States are barely going to keep track of these things. They're still going to distribute them in ways that are going to help them get elected. And so honestly, they just shouldn't steal money from people and then give it to other people. That's really the only answer here. But I continue to hope that people learn that lesson, or at the very least that the federal government shouldn't be doing almost any of the things that it's doing. But we don't have time to talk about it today, unfortunately, because we had two other really great conversations.
Well, so maybe we'll get to it another day.
Maybe we will.
But Friday, Dumb Bleep?
Dumb Bleep on Friday. We got to go early because I got to go up to St. Louis for a game. So.
Oh, it's back to football.
Back to football, the other football.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys enjoyed this, share it around. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment. Interact with us. We appreciate it. If you want to support this show with any dollars, you can visit the links in the show notes to support the sponsors that support this show. Sign up for the Fed Haters Club. Join gml.com. We appreciate interacting with all of you. Love having the live show and the live group. It makes it more fun. So be part of the Fed Haters Club. Join gml.com. If you do all of that, we'll be back again on Friday for Dumb Bleep of the Week. Until then, I hope you have a good day and a good morning, Liberty.